On my channel, I always talk about gacha games, heavy emphasis on the gacha, because while gachas are by all means actually just games, and the gacha part is only a monetization method, people still say to separate gachas from other games, and I mean, hey, I do it too. Mentally, I separate the two into different categories as the monetization method hangs over the head of pretty much everything in the game. Everything leads back to it. New version drop, who's the banner on it? New endgame mode, who do I roll for it? Exploration in the world, how much currency can I get? Whilst ones that aren't gachas just have you progress through the game for, well, the sake of the game. What new stuff you're going to see, what new party members are going to pull up, where's the story going to go, and those incentives definitely exist in gachas, but I feel like hanging over them is everything I said prior. So what happens when you release a gacha that was made to resemble a regular standard game first and foremost? Endfield. And what was the reaction to Endfield? Interesting. Now, saying this, I do wish to clarify some things, because you can definitely look at my channel and the fact I played Arknights before I even did YouTube as signs of a bias. Not to even mention, I still really love Endfield. The game isn't perfect, because no game is, but I really like it. So of course, anything I say praising it can just be seen as glaze. But here's the thing, I like criticizing, or hell, even shit-talking games I love, because I want to see them improve, or they just deserve it, as in the case of me calling Reclamation Algorithm the reincarnation of Satan. Because the hell do you mean, in a game mode where I could use an exploit to skip most of the grind, it is still too boring for me to actually stomach? Sorry to the 2.5 Reclamation Algorithm players I angered with that statement. Now for Endfield, are there criticisms about the release of the game in its current state that are fair? Entirely. I'll be naming some myself. Do I hate people bringing up criticisms I don't agree with? Not at all. I've made an entire video about this. Granted, doesn't mean I'll agree with them, because some takes about the game boggle my mind, but I'll get into that later. And above all, do I care about tribalism for these games? God, no. I swear, I've seen so many discussions on gacha games nowadays center purely around tribalism, either to prop up someone's own favorite game when others are doing bad, or if theirs is doing bad, agenda post the best they can to say the criticisms are actually not important. Now, I'll be talking about tribalism later on, but my mindset basically is, I want all games to be good, because then it means I have more games I want to play. And if there's ones that just don't interest me, at least the players of them are having fun instead of clocking in 12 hours daily in a torture chamber like League players do. So what is this video? Well, I wouldn't say it's a review about Endfield, though honestly you can kind of use it as that and it won't be too far off the mark, but I want it to be a case study of how the game was made and reactions to it, both in a way to criticize the shortcomings of the game and to discuss how gacha players treat new releases nowadays. But I don't want this to come off as me judging other people for not enjoying the game or just games in general the right way, because there is no right way. It's a game. How you interact with it and what experiences you take from it will be different for everyone, so I don't want to mix signals and make this video sound like I'm judging people for how they've experienced or critiqued the game, even though yes, I will be making some jokes about it, but instead I want to just talk about the reality of what people mainly discuss when it comes to the shortcomings of this game, and generally, what discussion about gachas is like and what it seems like players are prioritizing when it comes to criticizing these games. Like how for Endfield's release, everyone was just viewing one aspect of it above all else. The gacha. Wait, no, don't leave. I swear, I'm not here to beat a dead horse about the gacha system. I ain't even gonna mention it. Here's a flowchart of it if you want an explanation. Why is the flowchart pretty long? Hey, that's not my problem as of now. So just good luck with understanding it, because that's all you're gonna get. But over the past almost 5 weeks after Enfield's release, and a while before that too, so much discussion about Enfield started and ended with its gacha. It genuinely felt like nothing else mattered. All talk about the game just led to, do I have enough time to guarantee Levitain? How many pulls can I get in the first 10 hours of playing? Why is Perlica asking for 30,000 USD? It felt like so much discussion of the game oriented around the headhunting menu instead of the actual game. So because of this, I want to talk about how Endfield tried to be a normal game, where they failed in that, and where no one could have expected how much gacha players will focus just on the gacha. So when it comes to the progression of Endfield, it's pretty simple. You get dropped into the world, follow the main quest, unlock new areas, new sub-factories, keep going. Then eventually you will hit a wall where the game says you need to increase your player level to progress. Then you're meant to backtrack and do important quests the game gives you, like exploring the quarry or some stuff that unlocks new features. But you can also set up more development within the areas of the game, like placing out minor rigs to make more stuff at your factory. Also, you might just spend that time making higher quality heals and armor. Then when you do up all that, eventually you'll get your level high enough and progress with the game until the next level wall. But in that entire explanation, I didn't really say you're also going to be going out of your way to farm pulls in the game. I mean, sure, you can do that, and ways of increasing your player level gives pulls as well, like chests and stuff, but the rewards of the gacha aren't always dangled in front of you like a carrot on a stick. Take, for example, the factory. Time-wise, it takes up about half of the progression through the game's story. You spend a pretty significant amount of time optimizing it or going out to get resources for it. And what are the pulls tied to it? Well, if you max out regional development, which would be doing almost everything you can for your factory in Valley 4, you get almost 4 limited pulls. It's like 3 and some change. Granted, you'll be getting some runoff from the one-time sources that are loosely tied to it, like the crafting manual, but just from pulls given to the player from regional development level, yeah, it's pretty small. You get a lot of basic banner pulls, 14 from it and 9 more in the stock redistribution shop, so 23 in total, but unfortunately, it is just the case that the basic banner isn't as important as the limited one, so it's hard to view those pulls as equally important. Now, it got to the point where people wondered why the game didn't tie any pulls to the factory. Some said it made it feel comparatively really unimportant for them to spend their time on. There's no incentive. And my brother in Christ, the incentive is the fact you can get materials to level up your characters and weapons without needing to spend stamina. Like bro, I spent all my stock bills to get 1 million credits. It was pretty nice not needing to spend all my sanity getting those 1 million credits. And that's a bit of the disconnect I'm seeing when it comes to gachas. In normal games, any optional side content is made worthwhile by tying weapons to it, stuff that helps with exploration, resources, healing items, and Endfield does literally all of that. Now, I can understand viewing these items as less worthwhile than how they are in a regular game, because in a regular game, it helps reduce the grind, so I'm not doing something mindless to get to the interesting parts of a game. And when I'm done with the game, that's it. There's no future building or anything. So the time I spent getting those items fully went back to me using them in the game, but this isn't as much of the case in gachas because you're expected to log in daily and use stamina on getting whatever resource you're lacking in. So there's the idea that, independent of the stock trading system, you'll get all these materials with time, whilst roles would be more of a permanent account buff because it would give you characters to play with and have different options for teams. But with that being said, I feel like that explanation doesn't hold as much water in the face of so many people saying it takes forever to level up characters. So materials are obviously something people want and need, but even with that need being there, it pales in the face of getting pulls. Now, to a certain degree, I can understand it. Well, yeah, it'd be really easy to sit here and go like, gacha players just want their gameplay to be a slot machine and boss battles to be calling their bank to say the $400 wire transfer to Mahoyo was them doing it. But it is true that if you are playing a game that has content limited to a resource in it, in this case the characters being limited by how much currency you got, you want there to be some assurance that you can play with characters that interest you. And then to take it a step further, in the sense of how the gacha can limit the player experience, you might not want to build up other characters early on because you feel like it would be a waste of resources, as when you roll that higher rarity character, the old one's getting thrown into the trash alongside their tier 5 placement on Freed one. I mean, me personally, I experienced this in the second closed beta where after getting Levitain early on, I didn't really level her weapon too much because I was waiting to get her limited one. Then I proceeded to clear most of the main story in that beta with a shitty ass low level weapon. The enemies took way too long to die. With what I know now, I wouldn't have done that because it's not the end of the world to build characters or weapons that you won't use for too long, but I know not a lot of people want to be stuck in a position where after getting the character you want, you have nothing to level them with. It's why I appreciate when games like Nikke make leveling characters very easy to undo so you can spend those materials leveling other characters. So what's the best band-aid to this? Well, make it so you shower the player with roles early on. Don't make them wonder if it'll take forever for them to get a team. Give them enough to where they can get the team they want early on. And Hypergriff has gone off to do this. The 6-star selector and buffing up the pools you can get early on, even though it's not implemented yet, are their ways of fixing this. But now I get into a bit of a conundrum. Why the fuck did I unironically use the word conundrum? To where I understand the worries about the pull economy in Endfield and how that feeds into hurting people's enjoyment of the game, even though the game itself feels really good, it kinda just seems to come as a consequence of being a gacha, among a lot of the other problems the monetization method brings to the table. But then I worry that this outlook might become the norm, that a gacha can be seen as good, or it can make the game much better if they just drown you with pulls. Well, I think it's needed, and Enfield's release shows it's something a lot of people care about, if the number of pulls or how generous a game can be becomes the only point of discussion about a gacha's quality, we are generationally cooked on discussion about any of these games. Because I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of times I've disliked a gacha because even though they are giving me pulls, they're making me do some bullshit I'd much rather not be doing. And this isn't even coming from a whale perspective. The most I spend for gachas is just the monthly pass, and I could literally count on one hand all of the gachas I've actually spent money in. If that one hand was mutated to have 7 fingers. But if we just view gachas as good games from the perspective of how many pulls they give you per patch, I feel like we're missing the forest for the trees. I'm gonna keep it 100. Some gachas make events that feel like you're clocking into a 9 to 5 just so you can get 6 extra pulls. I remember playing PGR and I'm not gonna lie, overall, I like the game a lot, but dear God, Kuro, y'all do not know how to make the best minigames. Bro, I am sorry. There's only so much cooking minigames I could stomach for black cards, bro. I am being dead ass. Or the cute chibi, whatever the hell they had in Wuwa. It was funny at first, but that dragged on for way too long. If it was not for the currency tied to it, I would not have touched those minigames. I am being dead ass. Then I'm looking over at you, Star Rail. There's only so much bullshit I can stomach of stacking minigames, bartending, or pseudo Pokemon. Not leaving you up, by the way, Genshin, get the fuck back here. Prop hunt might actually be fun, but I'm seeing generational slander about the event going on right now. Not to mention the time you had me spend on Beetles as a reminder Ito exists. But the reason I bring this up isn't to shit talk these games, but to say that if discussion about their quality purely depends on pulls and how the gacha is, it ends up ignoring the quality of the game, which I found with Endfield. Most discussion about the game centered around the headhunting menu, with most not even bringing up the qualities outside of it. And to a certain extent, I can understand why, because in Enfield's case there was stuff to be addressed, and now it is. But first and foremost, these games should be fun. If the entire, or just main, lens you are judging a game through is fully dependent on the pulls it can give you and what the gacha is like, we are lost in the sauce. Because I don't care if a gacha is promising 1,000 pulls per patch, if getting those pulls gives me the same enjoyment of diving headfirst into a meat grinder. If all a game can promise is pulls, I would just much rather not play the game. Like take for example Duet Night Abyss. It's a gacha that does not have you gamble for characters, only outfits. So pull economy and gacha ranks aren't something you have to worry about. Does that make the game immediately the best gacha? Nah, cause Warframe exists and mogs it in basically every category. Here's the thing. I take like, hey guys, we should just focus more on how much we enjoy the game rather than how much we enjoy the gacha isn't exactly unheard of. I think a lot of people can either get behind it or understand where it's coming from. But it doesn't do much to help that so much discourse around these games is rooted purely in how generous they are and comparing that to other gachas. And that second part is what I feel like really hurts discussion, tribalism. I feel like some people are in the business of not complimenting the game too much if it steps on being seen as better than their game, or they feel the need to gas it up for it to be seen as better than a game they hate. It's pretty much like agenda posting when it comes to power scaling, except when it comes to agenda posting, everyone knows it's some bullshit and no one's serious. But this tribalism is seen as the most important shit possible. I've seen so many people use Endfield as a way to slander Hoyo or Wuwa and vice versa, of slandering Endfield to prop up those games, and I just gotta deeply wonder, bro, do we not have something better to spend our time on? Like genuinely. I'm gonna keep it 100. I got a pretty chill friend group. Some content creators, some artists, some people who know what touching grass is like and they do it often. And one of my friends who is a connoisseur of actually going the fuck outside said to me one day, over the topic of some pointless bullshit discussions or whatever the hell it was, he said, "My brother in Christ, when you're on your deathbed and everything is going dark, the last thing you're gonna say is, I wish I spent more time arguing about useless shit with strangers on Twitter." And I can't lie, that damn near made me instantly give zero fucks about any tribalism or any pointless shit on Twitter. Damn near, because sometimes I'd be looking at the tea people are having about these games, but I can't fathom waking up every day to then hone in on hyper hating or glazing shit like my life depends on it. Not to mention how whenever I got free time, bro, I don't want to spend that arguing about games, I want to spend that playing games. Though I really think people that engage in tribalism are less than 10% of the player base for these games. I think generally the community at large are just people who like the game, play it, and during downtime, play other games. Just the more toxic side of fan bases, which every game has, are the ones who are pretty loud. But I really feel like tribalism can't shut down interest in discussions about these games, because conceding that a game has flaws and needs to be fixed or updated is then seen as you feeding the enemy ways to hate the game. So it shoots discussion in the foot because you need to be hyper positive, unless it's just some shit a lot of the community can agree on as ass. Now I feel like with saying this, people think it's only a Twitter thing, but nah, big dog, it's where I usually see it, because the site's specifically coded to make people have arguments and shove those in your face, but I've seen tribalism take root in the YouTube comments section, for example. And I really hope Endfield also doesn't go down the route of a lot of the community being overtly positive about the game to shield it from hate people are giving it. Because, well, yeah, the game is getting hated on, it also does need to improve improve on stuff. What a lot of people said as a big one was the endgame, and this is actually one of the failings I think it has. It seems like Hypergraph made Endfield to be game first, gacha second, but with that being the case, it's gotta be understood that gacha players really expect just something to take a big root in the endgame, like Spiral Bits for Genshin, hologram fights for early Woo, a Memory of Chaos for Honkai Star Rail, and here's the thing. I know with these examples, people are gonna say they don't want Enfield to be seen as 3D gacha slop, that needs to market itself as adjacent to the Hoyo kids and Woo, but it's also just the case that to release a gacha nowadays, stuff like having some endgame modes to see the effects of your builds in is seen as normal. But Hypergraph decided to delay it a while after release so people didn't rush through the game to gear up for it. The problem being, people rush through the game regardless. I see it in a lot of gachas where people view getting to the end game as quick as possible to be the main goal, which makes sense, because that's when your stamina is most efficient, or you can start farming out later stuff like relics. Though in the case of Endfield, it's essences and then making legendary gear from your factory. And this is one of the parts where a disconnect happens from what they wanted the game to be, game first, gacha second, and how everyone plays and interacts with gacha games. The progression in them isn't viewed to be like normal games. Incentives for activities that would work in normal games don't work here. The idea of pacing yourself through it, also not really the case. People view new gacha releases as you gotta sprint to the end game and get some builds going. Hell, it reminds you of when Limbus dropped, and I saw somebody talking about how they believed most people who played through Limbus on release were like themselves, where they just skipped all story content to get to the end game. And if you know anything about Limbus, you know there's fuck all after the main story, especially on release. Bro, we didn't even have Lux Cavations, and Mirror Dungeons were nowhere near as expanded as they are now. Limbus is also one of those games where the gacha feels like an afterthought, though I wouldn't even say it feels like game first, gacha second. It feels like visual novel first, game second, gacha third. It's a game that has all of its success built up by the main story, and any players going into it after playing LobCorp and Library of Runa, so a pretty big chunk of the player base at launch, because the game's not talked about at large back then, went into it purely for the story. But since it was in the gacha category, some people went into it with the idea the beginning story is gonna be ass, so you gotta rush through it and start farming the endgame. And there is literally not a better example of a game where that is the complete opposite case of what you want to do. Hell, that's even true now. And Endfield has a problem where they specifically made aspects of the game outside of the standard of how they'd be handled for a gacha, because they had the idea it'd be fine. But as time progressed and we've seen reactions to the game, it definitely became the case people didn't fuck with it. Made roles more backlogged because they thought the game itself would hold interest to get to those backlog sources. Well, now people are saying they can't roll the characters they want and get the items they want. They can, but they're saying it doesn't seem like they'll be able to. So, drop a 6-star selector and move to make rolls more front-loaded. Delay the endgame mode so people don't rush through the game. Well, people still rushed it and are complaining about no content, so time to make it release sooner. Thing is, I don't think these are failings with the game, and I also don't think these are failings with the people who are playing the game. I think it's just a showcase of what gacha players look for in new games and how they, on average, approach them. Which is really why I think Endfield could be used as a case study for gacha discussion and what to prioritize if you're making one. Now, also with that being said, I do think one big piece of criticism that is entirely valid and not just a clash of what they planned for the game versus what the standard is, are the pulls, namely the ones from Umbra Monument and the Arsenal tickets from the weekly. Umbra Monument pull-wise is incredibly weak, 2.4 pulls from the stages they drop in a batch. Now material-wise it's clean, no complaints, but this was meant to be a way players can consistently get pulls, one of the endgame modes that give a constant stream of pulls every patch, beating out a lot of the sources that are only one time, but there's just nothing in it. And also no Arsenal tickets, I feel like that's pretty important. One of the big criticisms I had in my beta test 2 video was that since we can't get those outside of polling, not counting the credit shop because overall it's fairly minimal, it makes the gacha system feel bad if you get a character early on because their weapon is harder to get. And it was announced in a stream that with weeklies they plan to give you Arsenal tickets. Then I got in game and it was 100 a week. So I would need about 20 weeks, almost half a year, just 6 weeks off, to get a 10 pull just from that. I feel like this needs to be buffed. Or we need to get it from more sources. But do I also feel like it's the end of the world with all this? Not really. Because overall, I still think the game is at such a high quality to where this is not as important for me to drop the game, if anything. But with that being said, of course, if the pull economy is not free to play friendly, people will end up getting annoyed with the game even more from that fact. So I think it's a problem to be addressed sooner rather than later. And me personally, I want more challenging endgame content. Not to whale flex a team or anything, because I don't whale, I ain't even got boss on Levitain, just purely because I'm seeing people say the combat is either button mashing or the rotations in them are as simple or simpler than Genshin's, which hey, you're free to have the outlook you want in life, but man, that's just factually not the case. If you need to clear content, button mashing is all it takes, but saying the rotations are as simple as Genshin's is just a lack of understanding when it comes to the combat in both games. In Genshin, I could get a rotation for my 4 characters, and in 99% of combat encounters, that rotation will not change. In Endfield, the opener remains the same in most fights, but the order in which I use abilities changes a ton. Like if I'm using Levitate, I won't blindly pop Wolfguard's skill if the enemy has combustion, because he doesn't inflict heat on the enemy with that, only when they don't got it. And I also wouldn't pop his battle skill if he doesn't have his combo skill up, because not using it misses another heat stack for me. But then I don't want to mash Levitate's combo skill if she already has 4 stacks, because I miss getting one. The big thing is, you need to think on the fly what is the most optimal thing to use in combat. For Genshin, I pretty much always know what is most optimal to use against the enemies, and it's more than likely just the same rotation I've been using. But that does depend on the team comp you're using. However, the difference between the games is that while Endfield looks to have its optimization mid-combat and making the right calls of what abilities to use, Genshin has it by having its team building be incredibly complex and malleable, to where you can have a character fit into a lot of different roles in various teams by just building them differently, instead of one character feeling the exact same in every single team comp they're in. Think for example how people built Raiden as a main DPS, then Dendro came out and people were like, wait, what if we build her as an enabler for this shit? And that's the big difference between the two games. But, sorry for that rant, just had to go off on it, because seeing the take that the combat systems are one-to-one the same boggles my mind when it's obvious where the differences are. But with that being said, Endfield is definitely a good case study for what gacha players will look for in a new release above all else. It shows what's most important when you're making a game in this genre, quote unquote. And their actions to address the criticism show they do care about improving it. All in all, I will say, with the game finally having its full release, I still love it. For me, I think it hits perfectly. The actual core of the game itself is something that has kept me playing through the technical tests, 2 betas, and again on the full release, where I never really got burnt out from the game. I'm really happy with the game as it is right now, and I do hope they continue addressing and improving on the criticisms people have.